And a lot of guys don't do that. That's the number one complaint that I hear from customers, whether I go to the job or I just answer the call, is, hey, no one called me back. So many times I've heard, I tried 6 people, you're the only person who called me back. So that's probably number one. Follow through. Like if you tell somebody 2 weeks, you'll be there. Either be there in 2 weeks or give them a call and tell them why you can't be there in 2 weeks. Obviously our business, there's weather-related issues, there's sometimes employee-related issues, but just being upfront with people goes a long way.
Welcome to the Landscapers Business Growth Podcast. My name is John Giacotto, and I'm your host. We've got Jeff Stopa with us here today. Jeff is the owner of Stopa's Landscaping in Bridgeport, Connecticut. Jeff, thank you very much for joining us on the Landscapers Business Growth Podcast.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you for having me.
Cool. So tell our listeners a bit about Stopa's Landscaping, kind of, when you started, how big you guys are, that kind of just general stuff.
So I started Stopa Landscape when I was like 19. I grew up in northern Maine. I would spend my summers in Fairfield with my dad. Dad actually had a small landscape company that homes he did by himself, so I would help him out a little bit over the summer. I also worked for farmers up in northern Maine, so I was used to the hard work. And so a week after high school, I moved here, started doing a little bit of work with my dad, and then my dad went away to the Army for a few weeks, and he said, hey, I'm going to put an ad in the paper for you in the Fairfield Minuteman, and, answer the calls and see what you can do. So he came back 3 weeks later, and he had like 10 accounts, and we had like 55, because I went on every single call. I think a lot of the people appreciated that I was a young kid who really wanted to work. And Dad said, well, I never really wanted a business, He's like, I just wanted extra cash for after work. And so he gave me one of his lawnmowers, and I took my truck and just started, working away at it. I grew it from myself to, when we're busy, around 40 people work for me now. And along the way, added in landscape designer when I was like 22. Her name's Jen. She's worked for me, from 22 to 44. So, and we're still going. She's great. We make a good team. And I'm proud to say I still have a few of my original employees from when I started when I was like 19, still work for me. So
what do you attribute that to?
I treat them like people, we joke around, we have fun, like any other company, we do Christmas celebrations and stuff like that. I've had a couple instances where, guys have gotten sick, and, I've helped them out. Like I've supported them for months until they got better. And so they know that I'm loyal to them. And they also know that they know their jobs. I send them out to a job to do it. It gets done. They never hear anything negative from me, as long as they're doing the right thing. So it's kind of like, almost like a big family atmosphere, and they feel like they belong, and they're proud of what they helped me build.
Is that big family atmosphere something you've always had, or did it evolve over time?
I think it evolved over time. I was definitely more of like I guess you could say like a hard ass, until I realized like, you get more out of people, being nicer and which is what I wanted anyway. I didn't realize when I was young that, you get a lot more out of people by being a lot nicer instead of pushy. and it's worked out well. So it's been better for them and for me.
Gotcha. And so you get up to 40 people. What about in the winter? Like, what do you look like in the winter in terms of your number
Oh,
of
it's
employees?
much different. We do snow plowing, so
Yeah.
I call everybody, before a storm and say, hey guys, be ready. So everybody comes back when it snows, but last year it snowed one day down here, so they worked one day. But it's, usually in the office I have my sister in here, and then I have my manager Eric. He kind of takes over everything. A couple other guys will come in and help Eric out with maintenance and getting all the trucks and machines ready for the next year. Past couple of years the weather's been great, so I've actually been able to keep a few people other than that busy every day, doing project work, whether it be patios or walkways or fencing. Even at one point when everything was great, business-wise, at the end of the pandemic, we were doing screening trees and plantings like all winter. So I enjoy the warmer winters more than I do the snowy.
Right. Right. So what is your service offering? Walk me through what that looks like.
So, as I said, I started out with grass cutting. Now we have tick spray program. We have fertilization program. We have landscape design, masonry, fencing. We do added in landscape lighting and also Christmas lighting. We started doing the Christmas lighting a few years ago, sort of by accident. I had a couple customers who said they had their own lights. They wanted us to hang them, and we put them up. And I showed my wife a couple pictures, and my wife was a designer for Ralph Lauren. She did all their Christmas displays. And she said, "That's terrible. Looks awful." So I then kind of took the challenge, and I called a Christmas lighting company out of Long Island. And I said, do you guys do training? What do you do? Do you supply the lights? And one of their salesmen, this guy Grant, he's a good guy. He came out and he trained two of the guys who work for me. And now the lighting, Christmas lights are awesome. I show my wife pictures of every job, and she's like, wow, that's fantastic. And it's this year I've really worked hard on it. We've gotten a lot more calls, and I've been more creative with the jobs that we're doing, because honestly I started to get bored. Everybody wants warm white lights and a wreath, and I'm so trying to sell more. I'd love to do more colored light jobs because those are cool, but so I've been getting creative, just trying to make the jobs a little bit more interesting this year.
Right. So you also offer fence installation, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So you have a very wide variety of services that you offer. How have you kind of added those over time? Has it always been, let me learn this new skill, or have you strategically said, let's hire a guy who knows fences, for example?
So it's been a little bit of both. Like when I was doing the physical labor, I had one client who encouraged me. He was like, he had a big fence project. And he was like, oh, well, you could learn it. Somebody in the fence business, maybe they could come out and kind of give you some pointers. And so he was kind of instrumental in giving me the confidence when I was 19 or 20 to learn a new craft other than cutting grass. I personally, it's not my thing. But after that, I just learned, the value of hiring people who know how to do things. And so hired a couple guys who knew how to put fences in, and kind of how we do fences. We'll do them if we have to, or if it's part of a big landscape design job, and it fits kind of like our time schedule. If it doesn't fit and we're like, man, this job is it's going to be too time consuming, we're too busy, there's a couple other fence companies in the area that we hand it off to. We'll say, hey, all right, call Colonial Fence or call Anastasia Fence, and or we'll just set it up for them. But a lot of times I'll just say, hey, we could use that job in the winter, and we could probably do it a few bucks cheaper in the winter. A lot of people are pretty patient when they know that they can save a few dollars in the off season. So that's how we get those jobs.
Right. I mean, that sounds like a great way to keep yourself busy in the winter, and give the customer an incentive to want to wait to get their job done. So let me ask you a question. So are you mostly residential? Are you doing commercial? How does that split work for Stopa's Landscaping?
So we're probably 90% residential, and then 10% commercial. We do condo complexes, stuff like that. I just always started dealing with residential customers, and I've always had a great rapport with people, so I was always very comfortable doing that. I know a lot of guys like to go commercial because they don't want to deal with homeowners, which I get it. It can be difficult sometimes, but I have pretty thick skin, so I can deal with all the different things that happen when you deal with residential customers.
Right. And what are you doing to find work? Like, what is your approach for getting the phone to ring, basically?
So originally, how I really kind of jump started the business was I figured out that if you could pay for advertising on Google, but obviously that costs a lot of money if you want to get the top spot. So I hired a guy, a SEO guy, and he does messes with the keywords so that I don't have to pay Google. I come up at least top 4 usually. So we started getting a lot of calls like that. The other thing that has really helped us are a lot of the Facebook groups, like the mom and dad's groups. That was all referral from people. And I'll tell you, anytime somebody asks for a landscaper in Fairfield or Westport, I go on there. Our name is mentioned at least 5-6 times, for every person who asks. So it's a good feeling to see that people have confidence in us, and so our name is really out there. Our names are on the trucks. I've done certain things like, I belong to a barter company called iTex. And they had like the back of the receipts at Stop and Shop, you could put your company on there. So like little things where people are gonna just see your name, every day. I haven't done that in a while, but we have lawn signs that we put out. I'm not real great about that. I have been with the lighting, because this year I've really been trying to push the Christmas lighting. I think that's kind of a new and upcoming thing. It's, especially this area, is like very trendy. So it's definitely a new trend in the Fairfield Westport area that's starting to take hold.
Right. So mainly search engine optimization, but also a lot of social and just being present. How have you gotten people to? And I assume by these, mom and pop group, you're talking about the Facebook talks groups, right? Like each town has like a talks group where people in that community are in. Is that what you're talking about in terms of Facebook?
Fairfield has Fairfield Moms, or Moms of Fairfield.
Gotcha.
There's like 2 different groups. And people just start mentioning your name on there, and a lot of people go on to these groups just to communicate with their neighbors. They're very popular groups. Dads of Fairfield is another one. And we just kind of took hold on there, and anytime there's a question about landscaping or whatever, people always refer us. Sometimes I'll chime in, like if somebody has a landscaping question, I'll answer it for them. So I'm sure that helps a little bit.
Yeah. So you're active in these groups, and did you have to do anything to get your customers to kind of, like, have you had to do anything to get your existing customers to kind of mention you in these groups, or they just automatically, you do such a good job?
I didn't ask for it. I actually, I like to ask people when they call, where did you get our name from? And a lot of people started saying, oh, the Mom's a Fairfield page, or the Dad's a Fairfield, or Mom's a Westport. And so I actually went on and I tried to join the group just to see what people were saying, and I wasn't a Mom of Fairfield, so that took a little bit to get into that. But the past few years, anybody, you can be anything you want to be. So eventually they let me in. So, so I get to see, what people are saying, and it's great. It's always been a positive experience. So.
Right. So you guys are on the larger side for landscaping companies. What, do you spend your time at this point working on the business or in the business? Are you still going out on jobs, or have you kind of, you have a team? What is your kind of structure look like, and kind of what is your main role at this point?
So I probably do too much, but I start my day. I wake up at like 4 a.m. every day, and I'll either start scheduling for that day or working on estimates, so there's that part of it, all the scheduling, and the pricing, and then occasionally I jump in on a job. It's much harder to now, but like I said, I have so many people that work for me, that have worked for me for so long, that it's actually better that I'm not on the jobs doing the work, because I can focus on the business and they can do their job, and so I'm not as like physically hands-on anymore, but I do take all the calls from people, direct the crews, answer questions. I like to go to set up jobs. There are a lot of jobs that I just don't even need to set up, because the guys who work for me have been doing this for so long. They know our customers, they know what the people want. So that makes life easier, because I don't need to go set up every single job every day. When we're busy in the summer, we've got like 10 crews going. We have tick spray crew, we have a fertilizer crew, we have landscape design crew, masonry jobs going on, grass cutting. So it's impossible to be everywhere at once. I've just learned that it's important to, if there's problems, just to address them. I think that's all people really want. They just want people to call them back, and if there are problems, any business is going to have a problem. At some point, something's going to come up. Oh, that didn't go right, or this didn't go right. But the most important thing is just following up and fixing it. So I've learned that you can do a lot of work with the right people and the right approach to handling what people want. Right.
And so what is your, are you doing sales still? Like, are you like, what does your sales process look like, and is that you who's doing that, or you've got a team doing kind of the sales side?
I do most of the sales. Which is kind of running me ragged. I need to figure that out a little bit, but okay. And I'm quick too. Like with estimates, I usually get people estimates within like a day and a half, and that's to my advantage, because a lot of companies drag their feet, and I find people around here, they just want to make a call and get an answer and get it done. They don't want to wait a week or two for an estimate. All of our landscape design, Jennifer handles all that. Like I'll go with her to meetings to look at things, because I do have input on like certain aspects of the projects. She'll call and say, Jeff, what do you think about this? What do you think about that? So I definitely know what's going on everything that she designs. But she's definitely like the big seller of all that stuff.
Okay. All right. And so you mentioned kind of the speed to getting a quote out. Are there any other things where you've like learned over time, let's say, that you're like, this is a much better way of doing sales in the landscaping industry? Or, what are the kind of most important lessons you've learned that you think would be kind of relevant to some of our listeners who perhaps are trying to get to your level but are much smaller in size?
So call people back. Like, even if you can't take the job, call them back and just say, hey, I can't handle that right now, but thank you for calling me. Like, you should appreciate the fact that people are calling you. And a lot of guys don't do that. That's the number one complaint that I hear from customers, whether I go to the job or I just answer the call, is, hey, no one called me back. So many times I've heard, I tried 6 people, you're the only person who called me back. So that's probably number one. Follow through. Like, if you tell somebody 2 weeks, you'll be there. Either be there in 2 weeks or give them a call and tell them why you can't be there in 2 weeks. Obviously our business, there's weather-related issues. There's sometimes employee related issues. But just being upfront with people goes a long way.
So communication is kind of key in, to how you approach sales.
That's the biggest thing that I've seen is communication. A lot of contractors, it's not only landscapers, it's most contractors are, honestly, they're terrible at communication. They're awful. They don't call people back. There's some people that are in business, honestly, I don't even know how they have a business, but I guess it's because not everybody calls everybody back. So that's the one thing is that, I take pride in is that I call everybody back and I'm, upfront with everybody.
Gotcha. Okay. Are there any lessons you've kind of learned? Pricing jobs is kind of a very popular topic. Are there any lessons you've learned about how to properly price jobs so that you're going to be profitable? What's been your approach to that? Is it just based on gut instinct and experience, or do you have a more systematized process for pricing jobs?
So obviously every job is different. Every lawn is different. I'll have people call me and they'll say, oh, I have a 1/4 acre on, such and such a street. Can you give me a number? And I tell them I have to look at it because, you may have a number of obstacles in the yard, which can increase the price, or it's just a piece of grass, which, is a little easier to do. So as far as like lawn cutting goes, like that's, one of the things is you always got to look at it. I always run the numbers on all the jobs that we do. So I kind of know where my mistakes are. I enjoy math. So, I'll figure out like an hourly, all right, we should be making about this hourly. And here's our materials and stuff like that. So I kind of have a pretty good idea going into things of what it should cost just by, it's almost like going to the gym and running, right? Like you just keep running those numbers, just keep running them. And that way you don't get out of line with, or underbid or overbid. Sometimes when I'm unsure, I'll tell a customer like, hey, this is going to be a hard thing to price out. I think it's going to be X, but, I could do time and material depending upon what it is. Whatever's fair is fair. And some people go for that and some people aren't as trusting and they don't. But that's kind of how I've worked it over the years.
Okay. What's your software stack? How are you kind of, you mentioned your costs, the, you're into the math portion, but what kind of software stack are you using to help facilitate all that, your estimating process?
So I use QuickBooks. I'm going to switch over to, I'm going to still use the QuickBooks, but I want to get all our scheduling on, I think I'm going to use this app called Jobber. We're going to start setting that
Very
up this
popular.
winter. But I mean, I basically price each job, manually. I get a piece of paper and write stuff down. We measure things out. You just have little kind of old school methods, I guess, is how I do it. Like today, I went out to a customer's home. We had a design or a layout of the property, and we had mapped out like 27 trees we wanted to put in. And I just said, you know what, I'm going to go out and I'm going to take a tape measure and figure out how wide these new trees are that are going in, and literally just map out every single tree with spray paint and see what we come up with for, the coverage that we need. And he and I had guesstimated, with this site plan that we used, looking out his window, 27 trees. And I had run a measurement, and I was like, it doesn't seem right. It seems like we should have about 20. So once I mapped it all out, we needed 21 trees. So just kind of like taking your time. I spent about an hour and a half there. Goes the extra mile. You'll be more accurate. Had we showed up to that property with 27 trees that are $3,500 a piece, that's kind of a big mistake. So, we show up with 21 trees. He's happy because he got it perfectly accurate, and you're not stuck with an extra 6 trees.
Were you always that careful in your estimation process? Meaning you always put the time into it, or when you started out, was it?
I did, and I was never like a very disciplined person, but I knew that I had to be if I was going to do the business the right way, and I learned that very early on, that you just can't guess at things. You have to know what you're going to do and what you're going to need to do it. Had I not done that, I would never have been as successful as we are now. You just can't guess at things. You have to know, and there are ways to know.
Right. So you mentioned QuickBooks. You start using Jobber. Are there any other? Is there any other software where it's been integral to your business, in terms of like CRMs or anything else that you're using that you found to be very helpful?
No, nothing else that we really use on a daily basis.
Okay, all right. Well, let's talk a bit about employees. How are you finding employees? How are you kind of going about the recruiting process? What have you seen work for you other than just having a great culture and kind of being attractive for employees to come to?
So for a while, we used a couple of the online sites. I can't remember the name.
Like Indeed?
Indeed, yes.
Okay.
Indeed, it's not very reliable. Most of the people don't even show up that say they're going to show up for an interview. But I've got a couple guys who work for me that I did find on Indeed. They've worked for me now for 9 years. Maybe not that long. But anyway, they're great. They're fantastic. So I can't totally knock it. And then, once you get good quality help, and it's a place where people want to work, I find that those people will actually help you recruit people. Some of the people who work for me have said, hey, I have a friend who needs a job. He's actually really good. Can I bring him in? And I've done that, and it's worked out really well. Done it sometimes, and it doesn't work out. But typically that's a good way. And then a lot of the guys who work for me, I don't typically need to fire people. They handle it for me because they want to work with people who want to work and want to do the jobs, the way that they have been doing the jobs. So there's not a ton of turnover here anymore. There used to be, but once you get the right people in place, it seems to work out.
Okay. Do you have any advice for other landscaping companies around how to kind of shift from where it sounded like you had more turnover to, having almost, very little turnover like you have now? Is there anything specifically that you've done to kind of change that, or did you just luck out and you kind of weeded out the bad people and now you're left with the good people?
You got to find, like I said, the right people. And if you find the right people who make other people that they work with feel comfortable, that's a big help. Pay people well. Let them know that they're appreciated. Another, thing that has helped in this industry, a lot of the laborers, they don't have driver's licenses. So one of the big problems is finding people to drive the trucks. But you need a couple laborers for every truck. We have 2 shops in Bridgeport. Both of the shops, I'm just lucky enough that they're in areas where a lot of the laborers live. So they can literally, I'd say out of 40 people, there's probably like 32 that walk to work. So they literally just walk right in. And that was during the pandemic, when there were employee shortages. That was another way that I actually benefited. We had people walking in the door every day, like, hey, can I work? I need a job. We're laid off. Whereas they may not have had public transportation at the time to get to a job, say a restaurant or whatever. They could just literally just walk in because of where we were located, close to where they live. Right.
Okay. I want to talk a bit about, so you do snow removal in the winter? Is that?
Yeah. It's
okay.
Not my favorite, but we do it.
And what's your business model for doing snow?
Well, so I know snow. I grew up in Caribou, Maine, and it's a very snowy area. So, but the difference is up there, snow is not hard to handle. It's just people expect it. Down here, when it snows, it's like a end of the world type of thing. Like, oh my God, I'm not going to get out of my house for days and days, and so it's a different animal. People kind of freak out a little bit, but so that's one reason I don't really enjoy it. But because it gets a little bit demanding. All our trucks are, whenever we buy a new truck, it's fitted with a snow plow. We do several commercial properties, and we do a lot of residential. We've only plowed 3 times the past 2 years in Fairfield area. So, and I'm okay with that. It's not something that I'm really interested in doing anymore. The insurance is so expensive. Again, it becomes demanding. The hours are crazy. So it's not at the top of my list. It was when I was younger. It's kind of like a young man's thing, and I'm not old, but I'm tired of it. So,
right. So would you say that you've been able to focus less on snow because you're doing these other services like fence, like light, holiday lighting and those things? Like, since you're diversified, has that helped kind of do less snow, or?
Yeah, I don't say no when it comes to snow, just because I do have people that need to work. So I don't say no. I just am telling you my personal opinion of it.
Right.
But yeah, being diversified definitely helps when it doesn't snow. Like the past 2 years, my attitude has been good. I hope it doesn't snow, because I'd rather work every day and consistently make money than work once every 2 weeks and be completely exhausted and have trucks that are beat up and plows that are beat up, than to have to deal with that. it's totally different. It's more of an emergency type of a job, and it's just something I think a lot of landscapers are getting out of or considering getting out of.
Right. What do you think the best way to get out of it? If you're a landscaper in New England, right, you need to kind of have revenue coming in during the winter months. What would you say is the best path towards getting out of snow removal if that's just not something you want to be doing?
Well, become diversified, like we have, or don't get into it at all. I've kind of run some numbers on it. It's cheaper to buy all two-wheel drive trucks and not have to buy a more expensive four-wheel drive truck and have to fit it with a $8,000 to $10,000 plow and then sanders and all that. So if you're getting into this business and you're not doing plowing, you might want to consider becoming more diversified outside of that. And then buying, you don't need a four-wheel drive truck in Connecticut unless you're doing snow plowing. There's just unless you like going mudding on the weekends or something, but you don't need that, and it's much less expensive if you learn how to buy these things the right way.
Gotcha. Okay. So you started your business back in 2000, right? Is that the year? Okay, so about 24 years in business. Looking back on 24 years, what are some things you wish you had done differently that you think might be applicable to other landscapers who are kind of earlier on in their landscaping business?
Snow plowing. I wish I didn't get into snow plowing. All right, so that's one. Other things I could have, honestly, I put my best foot forward in anything that I've done along the way. I can't say that there's like one big thing that I would say, I wish I didn't do that. Because I've enjoyed pretty much everything that I've started getting into. And, like I said, running the numbers on it and making sure that it's profitable and worth your time doing. And I think, there are some things that are going to evolve in the business going forward that, maybe obtaining more larger property and, just getting us, like I said, set up more with, like a jobber app or something like that. But yeah, there's nothing that I can say that like I regret doing.
Right, because you've been very thoughtful about all the components of your business, right? Whether it's estimating, whether it's customer service, right? You've kind of approached those, it seems just from listening to you talk, you've approached those with a lot of thought and a lot of, diligence, basically.
Yeah. Waking up early, running the numbers, making sure that you're profitable, noticing mistakes before they get too big.
Well, how has waking up early helped? How has waking up at 4 a.m. helped? And I wake up at 4:30 a.m. So
my brain is more sharp. It's quiet. My kids are asleep. My wife's asleep. I can just sit there. There's no calls coming in. I'm not distracted. I make better decisions then. On the other end, I'm tired at night, but especially.
But you sleep well.
Sometimes.
Yeah.
Some of my friends say, I don't know how you sleep at night. And I say, well, I don't sometimes. But, just, having a clear mind and just, like I said, notice mistakes, before they get too big.
Right. Are there any trends in landscaping that you're seeing that you find very interesting or that you think are kind of relevant to discuss?
Like trends, like what do you mean? Like,
well, in terms of either technology, right? Electric mowers, a lot more. Are there any, I guess snow plowing would be one. Only people are less interested in doing snow plowing now than they used to be. But that also kind of goes into less people are interested, and does that create a huge opportunity, especially on the residential side, where fewer landscapers are interested in doing snow? There's still a decent amount of demand for it. Even if there's fewer, plowable snow events each year, there's still demand for people to be able to be plowed out.
Right.
Do you,
Well, so you're right. There will be a big demand for that. If we get some true winters, some heavy winters, that will all change. But the problem is the insurance companies. They don't want to insure snowplow drivers. They really, I heard my insurance guy was saying that, they want to start snowplow policies out at $40K a year, which is, that's a lot of money, especially if you're a small company. So I think that, eventually you may end up just seeing like large plow companies, that have tons of contracts. If the insurance companies keep going the way that they're going, they're going to push all the small guys out. So you're going to see stuff like that. Also, a lot of these commercial lots the past couple of years, I turned down 3 contracts this year because they all wanted to go to per snow event. And I was like, I'm not doing that. I'm not going to risk, it not snowing. I'm still paying for all the insurance and stuff like that. And I'm basically your insurance policy that I'll be there. I said, there's nothing in that for me. So I just didn't take the contracts on. Maybe it'll come full circle. Maybe they'll realize like, hey, we didn't get what we thought we would get in a hard winter and come back around. But like I said, that's not something that I'm into anymore. So I'm willing to watch it play out.
Right.
Other trends, the electric stuff, I'm not a big fan of. I would definitely use it if it were equivalent to the gas, but there's a lot of work that goes into that. You got to have extra batteries. You got to make sure it's being charged all the time. The equipment is very expensive. Westport had a ban in effect this year, or they had restrictions. There's really no consequences for using gas other than people just kind of complaining a little bit. But it's, I would definitely use it, but it's not there yet. And, it's going to increase the costs of landscaping tremendously. I mean, I have a little electric blower at my house. I enjoy using it because it is much quieter. I get it. But I can barely blow my driveway off with it,
Right.
I live in the middle of the woods. I get a lot of leaves, and it's just it's not conducive to our industry at this point.
Right. Is there anything else that you want to share with our listeners that you think would be relevant? Or if not, that's okay too. I always ask.
About trends?
Just anything else in general about landscaping, about, is there any advice, is there any advice that you would give to somebody who's looking to, maybe they have a few years of experience in the landscaping business, in the landscaping industry, and they're looking to go out on their own, for example? Is there any advice that you'd give to somebody who just came up to you, called you up and said, hey, Jeff, I've been working for this landscaping company for a few years. I'm looking to go out on my own. I'm in a different area than you. What would be your top piece of advice for me for how to go out on my own?
I would say, I've gotten some good pieces of advice from, I live in Fairfield County. There's a lot of very smart businessmen around here.
Yeah.
Watch the numbers. That was one of the best pieces of advice that I ever got. Got it from this guy. He was like a CFO at Disney, and he was a tough guy. Like he didn't like me very much, but his wife liked me. And he said, I'll give you one piece of advice. Just watch the numbers. So I did, and it's worked out really well. I see a lot of people in this business. They get so involved in it, they become like terrible workaholics. And I've been guilty of that at times too. And maybe right now I am too. But, make time for your family because, that's all that really matters. Work hard for your family, but make time for them and set limitations. It'll all work out. In the end, I said people like to get answers right away, but when it comes to family, they can wait too. So,
Right.
there's nothing more important than that.
Right. 100% agree. Jeff, I can't thank you enough for coming on my podcast. I think you dropped a lot of really great gold nuggets for our listeners, and I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you. Thank you for having me on.